real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back. Nathan Rome is with you. We are continuing with the Service and Sacrifice series in honor of Remembrance Day. I've got several guests lined up to talk about their experiences in training and deployments, the memories, the people, and impacts of service. I've got returning co-host Ben Klick here. For a little background on Ben, he spent 20 years in the Canadian Army, most of it behind the rifle. He is now the owner of Sierra 6.4 Riflecraft, and he teaches mental management and marksmanship for military and law enforcement applications, as well as instructing civilians. Our guest today is retired Major Mark Campbell. Mark is from Nanaimo, BC, and he has been involved with the armed forces in some form or fashion since junior high. In 1988, Mark completed his basic officer training and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry and joined 2nd Battalion in Winnipeg. Over the next 27 years, he served in a variety of junior and senior staff and command appointments within both the 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the PPCLI, as well as higher headquarters. His operational duties include Cyprus in 1990, Bosnia 97, and twice in Afghanistan in 2002 and 2008. In that 2008 deployment, Mark was targeted by a Taliban improvised explosive device. As a result of the blast, Mark lost both legs above the knee and sustained an equally long list of severe and traumatic injuries. Mark has had both physical and mental battles and now works in veteran advocacy with particular focus on addressing the inequities of various program streams. So say welcome to both of you guys.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
I said second lieutenant. Sorry, I guess I should say lieutenant.
Close enough.
I get that wrong?
Close enough. Most people watch American war movies, so they understand lieutenant more than they understand lieutenant anyhow.
Yeah, that is true. I'm glad to have you both here. We'll jump right into it, Mark, and
Sure.
Let's talk about you. So kind of, if you could start us with talking about where you're from and kind of growing up as a kid, what led you into the field of service?
Sure. I grew up in Nanaimo, BC. I was born in 1964, so I'm the last of the sort of the boomer cohort moving through. I had a pretty conventional childhood growing up, actually. But for whatever reason, and I don't know if I can't put a finger on any particular point in time, but I as long as I can remember, I was always fascinated by firearms. Again, I don't know the reason behind that, but it became my passion and my hobby as an adult, collecting firearms and shooting, target shooting. But I was absolutely fascinated, and the only place that I came to the conclusion that I could get early access to firearms was by joining the Army Cadet program when I was 13 years old. And there we were allowed to lay our hands on, back in the early 80s, all manner of armed forces weaponry because we were allowed access to everything that the regular Army had at the time. So
Oh, wow.
as a young 13-year-old, I was able to fire submachine guns and pistols and the FNC-1 rifle, the old hard-hitting 308 rifle, and you name it, we had it, including a Bren gun of all things, a light machine gun in the Cadet Corps. So the Cadet Corps pretty much fulfilled my passion at the time, and I found that I excelled in cadets. So that just naturally led me into a career of military service. When I graduated from high school in 1982, I did try for several years a number of civilian jobs. I moved out of the house and lived on my own and moved to Victoria and found work in a variety of fields. And really, I think what I was doing at that point was simply trying on what civilian jobs I could get in order to determine whether or not, any of those appealed to me before I committed to what I really thought I wanted to do, which was join the Army. And none of those jobs ended up really appealing to me. I did everything from store detective, busting shoplifters on their lunch hours, to building homes and doing landscaping and all kinds of things.
Okay.
And none of them appealed to me nearly so much as the military. So I ended up after 6 years in the reserves during high school and afterwards, I ended up transferring into the regular Army and served another 27 years once I graduated a couple years of officer training with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry.
So what, if we go back a little bit, what made you decide at this one point, like now I'm going to stop doing the civilian world stuff and go to military? So why not just do it right out of high school? Because it seemed like you're a rare case of where someone's in this from junior high. Why the delay?
I just wanted to be sure before I committed because
Mhm.
I knew that if I committed to the military, it was probably going to be a career decision unless something really didn't work out. So I kind of just wanted to be sure. I wanted to try on the civilian side of things. I mean, I was a civilian at the time, more or less, although I was a reservist. I was a part-time soldier. So yeah, I just wanted to try on a continuation of the lifestyle I had to see if that was going to be satisfying and fulfilling. And quite frankly, it wasn't.
Yeah. I say the same thing because I worked in finance and banking and then went into policing. I always wanted to do that, but you have to have like a fallback in case it doesn't work out. So,
Absolutely. I applied for the Vancouver City Police
okay.
in 1985, but I was considered at the time. They gave me the benefit of an interview, and at the time I was considered to be too young at 23 years old.
Really? Okay.
Didn't have enough life experience. They were hiring people in their late 20s and 30s in that time frame in that era.
Mhm.
And the other problem I had, quite frankly, was I was the wrong skin tone.
Hmm.
They were hiring for Expo 86, and they were hiring nothing but visible minorities as a priority.
Really?
The
Okay.
guy at least was honest enough to tell me this is reverse discrimination in action,
Hmm.
and you unfortunately are the wrong color, my son.
Wow.
So go get some life experience, and if you're really serious, come back and see us in a few years. I said, right on, sayonara, Army, here I come.
Well, you know what? And how times have changed or not changed. But, when I went through applying to the police, this was out of Winnipeg. And yeah, they weren't
Hmm.
taking people less than like 24 years old unless you were like a special case and they wanted a university degree or a
Yeah,
bunch of life experience. Now I know people who get on the job and they're like 19.
yeah, right out of high school. Yeah, I went and spoke to an Edmonton Police Service class not long ago about resilience and perseverance. When
Okay.
the chips are down, how do you keep going, or how do you dig deep, and that kind of thing. And when life hands you a basket of lemons, how do you make lemonade, so to speak? And I noticed the class was really quite young,
Mhm.
although there were 3 soldiers in there from my former unit, so that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of people jump from the
Military into
base here. Yeah.
saying, yeah.
Okay, so you get into this after a few years in schooling and doing some jobs. What do your family think of this? Do you have a history of service in your family? And are
Nope.
they no? And are they happy, not happy that you're doing this?
Well, my parents didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. They had no real knowledge because there was no family connection
Hmm.
to the Canadian Armed Forces. So they have very vague understanding of what I was going off to do as an infantry officer. Although I would try to explain some of it to them, it didn't. I don't think they really understood ever for that for that matter. But that's okay. They were supportive. They didn't try to dissuade me from doing what I was doing. I think they thought that I had done the responsible thing by trying the city side first, and trying my hand on a few jobs.
Yeah.
My dad might have even suggested that I do that before I commit to the army. I don't know, but that sort of became my idea as well. So they were supportive. I got married after I had graduated from basic infantry officer training, which was about a 2-year process with 9 months of French language training thrown in there and 8 months
Oh
of
wow.
of infantry officer phase training to learn the job of commanding mounted and dismounted platoons. And so by the time I had graduated, my girlfriend of 5 years was getting kind of antsy. She was back in BC. We'd had a long distance relationship for the following 2 years, and so we got married in fairly quickly after I graduated and was posted to my first battalion in Winnipeg.
Okay. Is
Yeah,
this the wife you're with now?
yeah, yeah. We've been married 35 years. Yeah, still married. Didn't do the training wife thing.
Yeah.
Stuck with the one I had. It was cheaper to keep her in the long haul.
Yeah. So when you go through this basic officer training, can you talk a bit about what that process is like, and how it might differ from some other paths that people take when they initially get in?
Sure. I guess the first thing that's you did was 13 weeks of Canadian Forces Officer Candidate School, where everybody who wants to be an officer in the Canadian Armed Forces, who wants to be basically middle to upper level management and leadership, goes through this. Whether you're Army, Navy, or Air Force, we all go through it together. So I did that 13 weeks of basic officer training, and that was everything from small party tasks. Change this wheel on a Jeep. There's some logs, some rope, a spare tire, but no jack.
Mm, yeah.
You've got 5 guys, and you've got these logs, and you've got a pile of rocks, and figure out how to lever up the Jeep and get the tire change. That kind of thing. Set up some tentage in an efficient and organized fashion. Here's 6 people, make it happen.
Hmm.
And so you've got to assess the situation, decide on a course of action, aim factors, courses open, come up with a plan, brief the plan to the troops, assign tasks to each individual, and get on with the job and get it done. So those are small party tasks. So you do a lot of that sort of thing to develop your very basic leadership skills, as well as your analytical thinking skills and problem solving skills. And all of these things are expanded upon as you move down the pipeline, the training pipeline, so that aim factors courses open plan eventually becomes a detailed combat appreciation, where you do an estimate process with mission analysis and then developing in great gory detail, sometimes in a written fashion, sometimes in a mental fashion. The how you're going to achieve whatever your mission happens to be with the resources that you have at hand. And do you have enough resources? And do you need to ask for more resources? And this is all part of the analytical process.
What?
So you learn the very basics during your basic officer training, hence the word basic, and then they expand upon things as you move on. I went to, like I said, 9 months of second language training, because all officers are expected to be bilingual in the Canadian Forces. Although being a boy from BC with no previous French language training, 9 months wasn't a lot, but I did manage to get functionally bilingual. And then we went on to the hard part, which was about 8 months, I guess, of infantry officer training. So learning how to lead soldiers in combat, the pointy end with a bayonet on the end of your rifle, roasting the bad guys out of a hole in the ground, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
The infantry takes ground and holds ground. Every other aspect of the Canadian Armed Forces supports the infantry, because only the infantry can take and hold real estate. The tanks, everything else, the ships, the planes, they all support the bloody infantryman, who at the end of the day stands on that hill that he was told to take.
Hmm.
So that was what I was doing, was leading those sorts of men like Ben Klick, and learning to lead them effectively so as not to get people injured or killed unnecessarily, but also so that you husband your resources and use them responsibly, wisely, and get to know your men, and protect their welfare, and all the various factors and tenets of leadership that you have to live by. Because when you do graduate from the training, which is very intense and long hours, long days, long weeks, when you graduate and you do get to a battalion and you become a young platoon commander in charge of 30 to 35 men, ranging in age from 18 to late 40s. And here you are as a 20-something young shavetail, wet behind the ears, don't really know anything, but think you know everything. And all of a sudden you're thrust into this this environment where you've got to get to know these people and find a way to get them to listen to you, hopefully willingly, so that you don't have to exercise your authority, but you can get people. I mean, the art of leadership is it's the art of being able to get people to willingly do what the leader wants them to do in the way that the leader wants them to do it.
So motivating them.
Motivating them, right? Giving them an investment in the outcome, making them responsible by giving them input to the plan if time and circumstances permit, giving them a vested interest in success, things like that. Empowering them, getting them to perform subordinate tasks that contribute to the whole, giving them responsibility.
If I can ask too, so what made you go through the officer training as opposed to just going right into being infantry? What's kind of the streams that, like, what are the options at that time? And is that identified by the CAF, or do you just apply yourself?
You apply. I had spent 6 years in the reserves as a recruit to sergeant. So I had been a non-commissioned officer in the Army, and I knew what that was about. And we had an old, long in the tooth, Patricia, PPCLI, Sergeant Major, who I asked for advice. And he said, listen to me, son. He said, you're bright, you're young. He said, you need to go officer, because if you do what I did, you're going to end up at my age in my mid-50s, standing in the same damn hole up to your knees in mud and rain that you did when you're 18 years old. At least as an officer, you do some of that, but not all the time, and you will progress, and the pay is better, and on and on and on it goes. And the sense of accomplishment and responsibility that comes from being in charge of things also is it can be rewarding, although it can also be daunting, and it can also they give you enough rope to hang yourself. You're in charge of the lives of men and millions of dollars worth of equipment. But that the routes in were direct. You could go direct entry with a degree already under your belt. You could go officer candidate training program, which is what I went through, which was grade 12 academics, but no degree. You were expected to get a degree later on your own time, with some assistance from the military, perhaps. And then there was the you could join as a non-commissioned member. So there was kind of the officer choice or the non-commissioned choice.
Okay.
And if you went non-commissioned, that wasn't the end all. And the end of it, because you could be recognized as someone with the potential to become an officer, and therefore undertake what's called UTP-NCM, or University Training Plan for non-commissioned members, to become an officer from an NCM. So you could grow into the officer thing as well, but not everybody gets to do that. So I decided, I might as well try this officer gig, be in charge. And at least that way I have some control of the outcome and my circumstances. So that's what I did. And I went in, I marched into the recruiting center as a 6-year reservist and said, I want to join the regular Army as an officer, infantry officer. Please make it happen. And so they did. They put me through the gamut of tests and medicals and all the rest of it, and declared me fit. And I went off and did what they called a combat arms officer selection board, where they put you through some of those small party tasks as a civilian to see if you've got the right parts and if they want to commit to investing in your training, because it's significant in terms of money and expense. And
what are those tests? What do they look like? Like what type of tests?
There's written tests, mostly written tests. There's everything from spatial orientation questions, where you've got a multiple choice. They show you one, bizarre Lego shape, and then there's 4 choices of what it looks like rotated into a different orientation, and you've got to figure out which one is the correct one. Things like that. Basic math, basic chemistry, writing essays on subjects which are assigned to you. All that sort of stuff. I see if you could express yourself in writing, express yourself verbally. There were interviews. There were physical tests. Physical PT type physical training tests, and then actual medical examinations. It was all pretty thorough. I felt, I'd been put through the ringer a little bit after I was done, but it certainly wasn't insurmountable or that daunting.
What once you're done this training, what's kind of the next evolution? So where do you go from there? You straight into
you get posted into your unit.
Yeah,
you get posted into your unit, and you're given a platoon of 30 some odd soldiers, and you get on with it. You're working for a company commander, as one of 3 young platoon commanders in the company. So you control a third of the company under the direct supervision of the company commander. And you're expected to train your men. You're responsible for their standard of training, standard of their equipment, standard of your assigned armored personnel carriers, whether or not they run and are properly maintained, the standard of your Arctic tent groups and all the equipment therein, stoves, lanterns. Does it all operate properly? Is it all packaged properly? Do you have all the equipment? Is it in good nick? It just goes on and on. You're responsible for all of it.
It sounds like a crazy job for like mid-20s.
It is.
And then you're saying you're in charge of people that are, could be up to 40 years old, and
yeah, with 20 years of experience on you. But they're there to teach you, because as a young lieutenant in the infantry, you're in a learning role even when you get to battalion. You come out of your 2 years of training, but that's just enough to get you in the door so that you don't embarrass yourself in front of your new troops. The real learning starts when you get to the battalion and you get real soldiers under your command with all of their various problems and issues. I mean, you get involved in family issues right off the hop. You got guys with alcohol problems that need discipline and disciplinary approach and counseling and probation. You've got to do all of that. You've got guys that have got domestic problems going on. You got to get involved and get to the heart of that. You got guys with creditors chasing them because the first thing they did when they got their first paycheck and, left mommy's left boob and joined the army was they went out and got themselves a big friggin' honking 23% loan on some truck. And now they can't afford to pay their bills. And so they got creditors chasing them. And you got to deal with all this stuff as a 20-something guy.
You sound like a police officer. That's exactly what you are.
Yeah, kind of. And a social worker and everything else rolled into one, and a killer.
Mm-hmm.
When the government says to. So, fascinating job, really, when you think about it. But the dynamic is you are still in learning mode as young lieutenant. And the job of the 40-something warrant officer that you have assigned to you, who's a senior man in the platoon, his job is to mentor you if he does his job properly, as he's been, is expected to. The role of the warrant officer in the Army is to train the young lieutenant if he is a platoon officer.
So did you have good experiences with that?
Yeah, I had good and bad.
Yeah.
I had good and bad. I had a guy that had a chip on his shoulder because he had failed officer training himself and had become an NCO and just didn't like officers because he figured he wasn't good enough to be one, and carried this chip on his shoulder and tried to fuck me over big time by basically telling stories out of school to the troops behind my back.
Okay.
And I caught wind of it, so I had his ass fired. I marched him into the sergeant major's office with the company commander in tow and said, "This fucker's been basically backstabbing me to my troops. And I don't know why. I don't care why, but I want him fired because he is a negative influence on my platoon." And they sided with me because they knew I was right and fired this fucker.
Is that when you were like 24 or right in there early?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And this guy was supposed to be mentoring.
That's quite the thing to deal with.
Oh, it was a big thing to deal with. But you know what? It's part of the fucking job.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
And so you got to do what you got to do because you can't have a dysfunctional platoon, right? You can't have one guy bad mouthing the guy that's in charge. It just doesn't work. He's sowing discontent. It's basically not even just slandering you. He's committing sedition, and that's punishable by some serious disciplinary action.
Ben, did you have anything?
There's a huge impact when you've got a leader, because I was on the other side of the rank scale, and kind of in that situation is that we had an extremely toxic platoon warrant, and when the senior non-commissioned member like that is slagging the officer, he may not realize it, but he's also destroying the command relationship of every rank below him too, because if he'll bitch about the boss, what's he going to say about the people that he doesn't work for?
Yeah.
And it teaches every man under him that you can bitch about the boss and badmouth the boss to everyone. So suddenly you have every rank bitching about the people above them, and it's extremely toxic and it's incredibly destructive, and it can cost people's lives. So good on Mark for doing that.
At what point did you two come across each other?
Not till late in life. We were both actually retired.
Well after.
Yeah. I'd heard of Ben. I knew of Ben because Ben was a bit of a legend. whether he admits it or not. But Ben's picture had been in a number of books because Ben was a bit of an innovator when it came to putting optics on rifles as a sniper.
Hmm.
And me being having my passion being military firearms, I immediately recognized, hey, this guy's doing something different than other people are doing. So who is he? Oh, he's a guy by the name of Ben Klick. Okay.
Okay.
So I knew of Ben, but he went off and he was in the airborne regiment where I didn't get to go, sadly, for me. But so we didn't actually serve alongside each other.
We served at roughly the same times. Mark longer than I did, but it was a big enough organization. I knew who he was, but we were in different parts of the military at that time.
All right. I was thinking just based on the way you were saying the story there, Ben, that maybe you were already working for Mark at that point or something.
No, but, I wish. Okay.
No.
I wish. No, different battalions.
So for you, Mark, you're in this position, you're dealing with some people that are causing you grief, to say the least. Mm-hmm. What's kind of your trajectory in your career? So you're in this officer spot. What does it look like for you in the next few years?
You do at least 1 year as an infantry platoon commander with a rifle platoon. Chances are that's all you're going to get, if you even get that, because there's a new crop of graduates coming out of the annual training cycle who are nipping at your heels, who want the platoon that you're commanding. So you get about a year of rifle platoon command. And then you probably move on to being the second officer in a what we called the support platoon. They were sort of the senior platoons in the battalion, and they provide the support weapons to facilitate the battalion's fire maneuvers. So you've got the mortar platoon, you've got the anti-armor or direct fire support platoon, you've got the reconnaissance platoon, the guys that go out and sneak and peek and gather information so that you can formulate plans. You've also got the snipers that at that time worked within the reconnaissance platoon, who are now their own separate platoon because they've become so important in the way we do warfighting. And signals platoon and a few others, the battalion headquarters and such. Pioneer platoon is another one that blows stuff up and builds stuff on behalf of the battalion to facilitate movement. So you've got these support platoons, and they tend to have the more senior soldiers in them, and they work directly for the commanding officer. So even as a second in command, if not the platoon commander, you get a broader exposure to the level of operations that are being conducted. Like when you're a rifle platoon commander, you got your blinders on and you're focused on your 30 some odd guys within the context of a 125 guy company with three platoons. Once you leave that construct and you go up to battalion level, now with these support platoons, your role is to support the maneuver of 3 rifle companies, totaling 9 rifle platoons.
Okay.
So that's what you're supporting. So yeah, as a platoon commander in a support platoon, you're getting a broader exposure to a higher level of tactics.
Oh, okay.
And that's what you're learning there, along with you're getting expertise in one of those, if not more of those support platoons. So in other words, you go off and you become an advanced mortarman, mortar platoon commander, or you become an advanced reconnaissance patrolman, or you become an advanced pioneer, so that you can command these guys with the necessary degree of understanding of their role, their specialized role, because these are all specialist platoons. So that's kind of what you do for your second and third year. There's other roles within the battalion. There's headquarters jobs in the battalion, like assistant training officer, assistant adjutant, the adjutant himself, who's responsible for HR, basically, in a 900-man battalion or 600-man battalion. So there's all those kinds of jobs that need to be done as well. Training officer. And after you become staff college qualified, which happens after about 5 or 6 years of service, then you can look at jobs like the battalion operations officer, which is the key planning sort of linchpin guy, who's very important. And he's kind of on par, or just one down from the company commanders. And there's only 5 company commanders. So
for you at this point, is there a lot of travel involved and a lot of courses or postings? Like, are you grounded?
There's a lot of deployments and training deployments to places. I was stationed first in Winnipeg, so we would travel to Shiloh, a couple hours down the road, which had a big training area, and we would train there, summer, winter, you name it. Everything from live fire trench clearing and combat assaults to blowing stuff up, making Molotov cocktails and napalm and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that was just standard, typical training, trying to get your guys up to a level where they can perform all of the necessary combat tasks that can be assigned to them. So that's kind of what it looks like for your first 3-year posting in the battalion. You go away usually for 3 years after that and do a staff job or assist a reserve unit as what's called the regular support staff, helping them throughout the week when they're not parading, get things done, keep the paper moving. And then you come back to battalion typically for your second posting, and that's the posting where you'll go off to staff college and you'll become the operations officer and that sort of thing. And then you'll go away again for 2 to 3 years in another headquarters, probably a higher level of headquarters, to learn what that's all about. And those are staff jobs in the headquarters, so paper desk jobs. And after doing your penance for a couple of years in a staff job, your reward is you go back to battalion and you get live troops again to command. And this time on your third tour, you're probably a company commander now. You're a major. You've been promoted through the ranks from second lieutenant to lieutenant to captain. Now you're a major. Yeah, typically, when I was going through, that took about 13 years of service to achieve the rank of major. If you were good, if you were really good, because although captain was kind of an automatic promotion like corporal, major was very much not. The major was very much only the cream of the crop got the promotion and got the company commander job for obvious reasons, right? You're in charge of 120 souls and millions of dollars of equipment. I mean, 15 armored personnel carriers. So that adds up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the weapons and night vision goggles and equipment, just unreal.
Because an officer's trajectory is it's a little more set than what you might have been doing, Ben. Like you're not bouncing around from like, oh, I could try this unit or this unit. It just seems like it's a little more linear.
Well, I think to a degree that's correct. The reality is, as Mark has described, there's 9 platoon commanders in the rifle companies. There's 270 privates.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I tried out for the Pathfinder platoon, there was 2 officers, 5 sergeants, and a whole bunch of corporals. So it was easier to get in as a corporal. So as a NCM, as a junior non-commissioned member, and then later as an NCO, there's a lot more positions.
Okay.
There's opportunities. Yeah.
There's a lot of lateral movement you can do. But much more interchangeable than a properly trained officer.
Yeah, the officer thing, you're undergoing training right up until, well, at least as a company commander. And even after you're done company command, if you're tagged to go higher, you're going to have to go out to the Canadian Forces College for a year of academic study, higher level academic study. That's like going to university for a year. And it's run by the Canadian Forces.
Okay.
So as an officer, you're always going back to formal training at some point, and then getting that next level of command. After company command, if you come back on a 4th tour, if you're pegged and you've gone to Canadian Forces College, you'll come back as the commanding officer of a battalion. You got 600 guys under your command now that you're responsible for their standard of training. You've got 5 companies to deal with, 3 rifle companies, combat support, and an administration company to make it all run properly.
Sorry, I was wondering, Mark, is it fair to say that, like, as you progress in your professional development as an officer, you become more generalized with a broader point of view, whereas in NCM, we typically, at least to the rank of sergeant or warrant officer, we become more and more and more specialized.
Yeah. That's a fair comment. Yeah, we become general officers. And in fact, I was considered a general officer, even though I was an infantry officer. There's general officers, and then there's specialist officers like lawyers and doctors and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we're considered generalists, even though we're specifically infantry officers or armored officers or artillery officers or what have you in the combat arms, combat engineers. Yep.
Interesting.
But I never, I'd be lying to you if I said I made it that far. I never made it to battalion command. I was a flat-face major. I was a company commander. I was actually the acting battalion commander of my battalion because I was the deputy commanding officer. what we call the DCO, the second in command, working for a really bright guy who just finished as the chief of defense staff for the entire Canadian Armed Forces, Wayne Hare. And he was the CO. I was his. He pegged me as his DCO. Reached out and brought me in from New Brunswick, and brought me home to Edmonton. And I was serving as his deputy when he got tagged to go overseas in the early days of Afghanistan. So in 2007, I was the acting commanding officer of 3rd Battalion, and dealing with the distilled evil essence of the unit, pretty much, because most of them were overseas, or about half of them were overseas. And that was, it was enough to convince me that that was a job I hadn't wanted to do. I was correct in my assessment that that was a job I did not want to do. I did it just long enough to find out that, 90% personal administration, 90% sorting out personnel problems, and maybe 10% training. Just not what I was interested in doing. I wanted to lead troops. That was all I cared about, was commanding troops. And if I ever got the privilege, then commanding troops in combat would be pretty much the ultimate. And that's what I got for my sins, being the acting commanding officer of the battalion. When I was done doing that job without any extra pay or recognition, the brigade commander said, "You can have pretty much whatever job you want overseas." I said, "Okay, well, I want to go to the operational mentoring liaison team. I want to be embedded with the Afghan National Army, train them, mentor them in combat on the job." And I just thought it would be the most fascinating opportunity. Way of going to war would be to fight with the Afghans side by side in low intensity counterinsurgency operations. So for my sins, that's what they gave me. That's where I went.
Before we even get there, though, so you've got Cyprus and Bosnia that come up before that. Were those, and I mean, the other guests we've had on here have said there wasn't too much going on in those, or they were, there's like pot shots here and there.
Comparatively speaking, where I was fortunate was I got to see the three main facets of operations, I guess you could say. I got to see truly conventional peacekeeping in Cyprus, where we were the United Nations wearing powder blue berets, standing in a very thin urban line, keeping, and a rural area too, but keeping Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots apart from fighting. And they were literally a street apart in the city. There's a blue line that runs through the capital city of Nicosia, zigzags through the city, and it's literally one street wide. And you got Turks gunned up on one side with bunkers and sandbags, and you got Greeks on the other side of the street gunned up with bunkers and sandbags, staring at each other with you in the middle, keeping the peace. That's conventional peacekeeping, where both conflicting sides have agreed to cease fire and be, refereed, umpired by the guy in the middle with the powder blue beret. Then I went to Bosnia in 1997. Cyprus was 90. 97, when I went to Bosnia, it was peacemaking, peace enforcement. This was a NATO mission now, not UN mission. The UN mission had basically failed on Perfor. And so we had the Dayton Accords that gave us some teeth as NATO. So we wore our PPCLI cab badges and our normal green berets, and we went in as part of NATO. And we had air support, and we told the Serbs and the Croats and the Muslims, because it was a three-way war, civil war, that if they persisted in fighting, we would bomb the living shit out of them. And it worked. Worked very well, especially when the Serbs tried it, and we bombed the living shit out of them. And they got the message. And so peace enforcement, or peace support operations, you can call them that. Call them what you want. We had the big stick, and we were making them stop fighting.
Yeah.
And for enforcing an international accord. The will of the international community was to make them stop fighting and killing each other, mostly civilians. And so that's what we went in and we did, or at least certainly tried to.
I was just say, can I ask, what? I don't think anyone else has brought this up, Ben. Correct me if I'm wrong. But talking about that difference between the UN and the NATO, Tim was mentioning it. So Tim Turner, we just had on the show, and he was talking about the UN side.
Yeah.
Did he mention NATO? I don't.
No, his later missions included NATO, but the one that you're referring to was a UN mission, and that was
Yeah.
some of the problems he was talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
The UN was terrible. It was the UN headquarters is indecisive. It's full of bureaucrats and diplomats. It's they don't understand the military methods and military system. So there's always a disconnect between UN headquarters and the boots on the ground that are doing the
Okay.
job.
That's what I was going to ask is, what do you see in effectiveness?
It is always a shit show working for the United Nations, to be honest with you. Yeah, because there are limitations, there are unrealistic and dangerous rules of engagement that don't allow you to defend yourself properly. There can be all kinds of problems with working for the UN. Not to mention UN non-government organizations and agencies that work alongside the UN.
Yeah.
They can be prima donnas and problems, with their demands and bullshit. So yeah, it's doing the work for the UN is usually, like I said, it's a shit show. But when you work for NATO, it's a little different. When you got the big stick and you're backed up by the bombers, then it's a different kettle of fish. Especially when you go in against a bunch of third world armies that are squabbling and killing mostly civilians on the other side. So that's when you can go in as a professional army and sort them out.
Mhm.
That's what we did. They tried to do that in Rwanda, but they didn't have enough UN force in order to stop the slaughter in Rwanda. So they just had to stand by idly while it went on.
Yeah.
That's what gave Romeo Dallaire and all the people that went there with him, operational stress injuries.
Yep.
Was the fact that they were helpless in the face of a slaughter and could do nothing about it.
Yeah. I've seen him present as well when he came to St. Albert a few years ago.
Mhm.
I saw that presentation there, and he talks a little bit about that military side. His
Right.
presentation now has got a slightly different focus, but it obviously,
War child.
it stems from that. And
Yeah.
listening to some of those stories, I was like, and years later, and you're still just like, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine seeing that stuff. For yourself, when you're going through with Cyprus, Bosnia, are you boots on the ground too? Or are you commanding stuff? Like, are you commanding these large elements, tabletop stuff?
I was a boots on the ground, but I was also battalion headquarters. So I was doing lots of planning
Mhm.
operations for the battalion level operations. I was the assistant operations officer. And when things really kicked off and we had problems, turned out the operations officer was on holidays, and I was the acting operations officer. So
Okay.
I was the guy in charge of planning on behalf of the entire battalion for the more interesting parts of the first NATO mission, the first NATO tour, which was ours in '97, first I-4 mission.
When you're, and I want to ask a bit about family at this point. So when you're going off and you're
Mhm.
doing these deployments, you have your wife Donna, and did you have any kids at this point?
Sure did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had one. My son was 6 months old when I went to Bosnia,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So left them behind, and quite frankly, you got to marry the right girl because she's got to hold the fort down
Hmm.
while you go off for 6 months and play soldier. So yeah, if you don't have the right lady at your side who understands the system and understands her role within it as primarily support, it's not going to work out. And a lot of marriages don't work out, military marriages, for that very reason: long absences. And it's not just the operational deployments, the 6 month operational deployments. It's all the training deployments when you're home.
Mm.
You're gone for a month at a time. We used to disappear for 2 months in the summer, every summer.
Yeah.
Go to Wainwright, camp in the woods for 2 months and train. And that's what we used to do. That was just every summer was 2 months in Wainwright. Don't do that so much anymore. Where we focus on, or the forces focuses now on short, sharp training deployments, Monday to Friday if possible, so that the weekends are spent with family. Because the forces finally recognizes the important role that the families play in supporting the soldier, so that he can go off and do his friggin' job.
Yeah, and have their head right.
So they pay, but they still pay a lot of lip service
Hmm.
to it. Yeah, they pay a lot of lip service. Like my wife is recognized. She had to quit her civilian job to become my primary caregiver when I was injured. And the fact of the matter is the Canadian Forces has what they call a caregiver recognition benefit. And you know what it amounts to? $12,000 a year.
Wow. That ain't much.
Hardly a replacement for giving up your civilian career that paid $70,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's the reality of what we had to do. So, like I say, the Forces pays lip service to the families in terms of recognition, but it doesn't fully support them.
You know what? We see a similar thing on the policing side, and I'll say it is far better than it used to be. But you will get certain bosses that, it's family, family, family. But all of a sudden, if there something for them is on the line or they need something done, it's like, whoa, whoa. Okay, well, let's talk
Yeah,
about this now. Or I'm going to tell you to do something totally different. You're like, okay, that's not what it was, 2 seconds ago. You're saying one thing, now we're
yeah,
doing another. So with you, maybe we can move into the Afghanistan side of things.
sure.
You did 2 deployments there. So you had 2002,
That's right.
2008. Um,
Mhm.
can you kind of walk us through what those deployments look like? Because this is probably the
Yeah,
most fresh in everyone's mind. Um,
sure thing.
so what did those look like for you?
Well, the first deployment was Canada's initial deployment outside of Special Operations Forces. We did have some of GTF2 operating with Coalition Special Operations Forces. They were separate and distinct from our component. Our component was a battle group based on 3rd Battalion of the PPCLI. The battle group had attached to it a reconnaissance squadron of Coyote long-range surveillance vehicles from the Lord Strathcona Horse, which is also located here in Edmonton, Armored Regiment. We had an composite engineer squadron attached to us from one one combat engineer regiment here in Edmonton. We had a forward support group, FSG, slice attached to us from one service battalion, which is the support agency on the base here in Edmonton, and some other add-ons. So all up, we were about 900 people, between 800 and 900 people in the battle group.
Mm.
Still with three rifle companies, combat support company with those specialist platoons, and the administration company combined with the forward support group to support the whole thing. Because we were Canada's first combat commitment to Afghanistan in literally January 2002, I had dust on my boots, 31 January. So right after 9/11, we were the first ones, or second ones in behind Special Forces. And we were embedded with 3rd Brigade of the U.S. 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. So it was a very interesting experience because our battle group plugged into an American brigade as the 4th Maneuver Element, 4th Maneuver Battalion. So we were treated just like any American battalion by the brigade commander.
Okay.
So we did rotations, as did the other battalions. You would do a three-way rotation. You would rotate for a month in what was called white cycle, where you literally took out the trash and swept the carpets. You did a month in base defense, which was literally a thin red line around Kandahar Airfield of bunkers and communication trenches that you occupied for a month at a time to prevent anybody from messing with coalition air operations. And then, there were 5,000 people on this base at the time, or the camp, that had to be protected. And then you had a month of what we called away missions, or combat or deployment missions, combat air assaults, whatever needed to be done in the war to eradicate Al Qaeda and to dominate the Taliban. So so we did combat air assaults. We did 2 combat air assaults in our time there, in our 6 months there, 7 months there, as well as a combined combat air assault mechanized thrust into an adjacent province. Our first one was into Shicod Valley at the tail end of Operation Anaconda, big American operation that didn't go so well. So we went in at the tail end and cleared a mountain feature called the Whale. And it was very interesting. It was a 4-day operation, carrying very, very heavy rucksacks at 10,000 feet altitude, sucking wind big time, and clearing a mountain. clearing down the side of a mountain. It was pretty interesting. There were times we should have been probably roped in, and we weren't. We couldn't because we didn't have ropes.
How was working with the Americans at your rank? Like, what was that like?
It varies. It was very good, but it varies. We were very fortunate to be with 3rd Brigade of the 101st because their commander had a great attitude towards us, and it permeated down, obviously, as leadership does. He was a fantastic leader named Frank Rachinski. He was a full colonel then, full bird colonel, a U.S. colonel. He retired, I think, as a 2-star out of U.S. SOCOM, Special Operations Command. But great guy, great guy. In fact, he did a video link to our 20th anniversary dinner a few months back.
Oh wow!
And we all got to chat with him and see him. He gave a little speech and that. It was pretty good from where he's retired down in Georgia. So so we worked for the Americans. We had a fantastic working relationship with the Americans, even when the worst happened. And on April 17th, a US F-16 fighter jet bombed our A company that was doing night training at Tarnack Farms, which was a range complex adjacent to the fully lit up coalition base at Kandahar Airfield. And this dink was at 20,000 feet, saw a flash of light on the ground, decided he needed to get his air combat medal. So he rolled in, descended, declared self-defense, although nothing was shooting at him because it was our guys firing anti-tank rockets on the range, and dropped a 500-pound JDAMs on our A company. Killed 4, wounded 11.
Yeah.
And even after that, which obviously hit the battalion pretty fucking hard, the Americans were fantastic. They weren't the guys that dropped the fucking bomb. They felt very badly about it and made that known to us and grieved with us. So it was all good. That part of it. Fuck that pilot. But the troops, the people we worked with in the 101st Airborne were fucking fantastic. Salt of the earth. Good people.
One of the guys that I know, there's a guy in our service that was hit by some friendly fire. I don't know if it was that exact one, but sustained injuries from a similar type incident.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there was another one a number of years later with Medusa, where an A-10 strafed Royal Canadian Regiment Company and killed 1 and wounded 33.
Yeah.
Just 1 2-second burst out of an A-10's 30mm cannon. 30 guys went down. Combat ineffective.
Jeez.
But in our case, it was a big shock. Yeah, losing those 4 guys. And there was a big to-do back in Canada here at the time, 2002. And we all wondered, what the hell are they going to do? We've just lost 4 guys, and they've had this national outpouring of grief. What the hell is going to happen to Canada if we fucking have a Chinook go down with 34 guys in it?
Yeah.
Canada going to cease to exist?
Yeah. Yeah, call the war off.
Yeah, I thought it was all pretty overblown back home, but hey, whatever gets you through.
So you do that. How long were you there for in 2002?
Well, 7 months, six going on 7 months. We got there in the end of January and we left in August. It was friggin' over 60 degrees Celsius when we left.
Oh, jeez.
But I remember the thermometers pegging out.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you remember dealing with all the creepy crawlies and different things over there?
Oh yeah, camel spiders, all that good stuff. Serpents, vipers.
Yeah, that's insane. I'd be more afraid of those things than someone with a gun.
Camel spiders were pretty creepy, I got to tell you. They're big, the size of a dinner plate, and they like shadows, so they'll follow you in your shadow as you're walking, and it's creepy. They rear up on their hind legs, and it's fucking creepy, and they're fast.
The fact that even exists on this planet, like, you keep your country, keep whatever you want. I don't want that.
That's why I'll never, if I ever go to Australia, I'm not leaving the city, man, because everything in that country is designed to fucking kill you.
So you leave there, so it's 2002-ish.
Yeah.
You don't go back till 2008. What happens in between there? 2002
to 2005, I was posted out as soon as we got home from Afghanistan. I was posted out in 2002 to Gagetown, New Brunswick, which is kind of the Army's higher learning center. And I taught in the Army Tactics School for 3 years. So I taught tactics to mid-level officers, to captains and majors. We ran the flagship combat training course for the Army, which is called the Combat Team Commanders course, run once a year, trains up all the next generation of company commanders and squadron commanders for the Army.
All right.
Question mark. So you're going into the College of Knowledge,
Yeah.
the infantry school, but you're going in a very unique position that you're probably the only combat experienced officer in the place. How did that go?
It went fine.
Yeah.
It went, yeah, because a lot of what you're teaching is rote doctrine type stuff.
Mm.
So there's not a lot of opportunity to inject, well, when I was in Afghanistan, we did it this way. There's not a lot of scope for that because a lot of what you're doing is mechanized at the tactics school. And of course, we were all on foot for the most part in Afghanistan, or helicopter borne, too. So there wasn't a lot of relevance, if you know what I mean, to what I was teaching versus what I had been doing.
Understood.
They weren't the same. But I mean, yeah, it was, the people looked at you a little differently because they kind of knew your story. I mean, when I got there, 2 weeks after I got there, Commander Combat Training Center, the commander had me brief all of the staffs of all of the schools on lessons learned from Afghanistan. So right off the bat, I had to go in there and say, well, at the infantry school, you're teaching how to do a section attack fucking wrong, because nobody does a linear bowling alley straight in front of the fucking lab section attack. It's all flanking maneuvers with a machine gun element or a suppressive fire element to pin down the enemy, just like we used to teach in the old days.
Yep.
So yeah, I didn't make too many friends when I went there necessarily when I went to the school, just because I had the unenviable job of telling some people that what they were doing was outdated and wrong.
So were they good at taking people that have experience
Yeah.
and incorporating it, like doing the debriefs and then?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, certain aspects of the Army I think are better than others at capturing lessons, but certainly Land Forces doctrine and training systems was responsible for lessons learned. And there's a lessons learned cell, and they produce, booklets about, the latest, greatest kind of tactics, techniques, and procedures. So there was some institutional learning occurring, and that was positive based on our experiences. Of course, the Army did a lot more institutional learning when we went into combat operations in 2006 in Kandahar. That's when the Army really started learning. But we learned so quickly that I don't think we were able to incorporate a lot of those lessons into our long-term doctrine. But that's neither here nor there. Things like the medical system were way behind. They hadn't touched a lot of their stuff since Korea, since the 50s. So things like the spectrum of care didn't even have electronic wheelchairs on it. It wasn't even considered a possibility that you would get an electric wheelchair if you had no fucking legs and you had to cross icy parking lots at -30 in Edmonton in the fucking wintertime. Wow. So they denied shit like that off the hop, but we won eventually. That's later. So in between, I did 3 years in New Brunswick teaching, trying to leverage what I'd learned in Afghanistan into some of the teachings, and then I was posted back to 3rd Battalion to be the deputy commanding officer, as I mentioned, for then Lieutenant Colonel Wayne Eyre. And I was a second in command of 3 PPCLI, where I'd commanded my rifle company 3 years earlier, and commanded combat support company in Afghanistan 3 years earlier. So I knew a lot of the guys, already. And I went back to 3rd Battalion, and I was a deputy commanding officer and the officer commanding administration company, which is the service and support company that keeps the whole show rolling. So I had to do 2 jobs at once, which was interesting. But, it worked out. And I did that for a year and a half, and from 2005 to 2006. And then 2006, I was the acting commanding officer when my boss went overseas, the battalion. And then 2007, I started a year-long train-up for my 2008 deployment.
All right.
Formed my mentoring and liaison team, and picked my team out of my 27 guys out of mostly reconnaissance platoon of the 3rd Battalion. picked all the experienced NCOs, mostly ex-airborne regiment guys, and assembled my crew of fucking handpicked warfighters to go off to fucking slay the bad guys.
Okay, can you just explain what an omelet or OMLT is?
Yeah, the operational mentoring liaison team is nicknamed the Omelet. And the operational mentoring liaison team was a small component of the overall Canadian Armed Forces contingent, very small component, charged with embedding with the Afghan National Security Forces, police and army, and mentoring them, and in many cases actually doing the physical leading of them in combat operations, because their own officers and non-commissioned officers were quite frankly inept to varying degrees. Some were experienced, but most were inept, and very few had any sort of real good formal training, especially leadership training.
Do you find, just on that, even talking to Tim before, and he's talking about working with the Afghan army and how they would like just completely abandon ship and run away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's all these other forces that you'll see.
And we would go corral them.
Yeah.
That was part of our job. As the Omelet, we would go corral them and kick their asses back into combat.
So, did you work with any other groups other than their army, like any of those resistant groups?
Oh yeah. Well, part of the deal is operational mentoring. That's mentoring the Afghans, giving them lessons, teaching them how to do combat in combat, so on the job training in combat while the bullets are flying. And the other side of it is liaison team, mentoring and liaison team. The liaison component is you are responsible. You're the point man for liaising with all the rest of the Canadian Armed Forces that happen to be operating in your area, so that there's no blue on blue friendly fire incidents, so that the Afghans will properly support whatever the Canadian maneuver plan happens to be for the larger force.
Okay.
But the Afghans, we always try to put an Afghan face on every Canadian operation, right? Because you want the Afghans to lead. You want the Afghans to do the searches of the compounds so they don't piss off the locals and they know where to search. So you put an Afghan face on everything. So the Afghans have to be incorporated into all of the large scale Canadian plans. That's my job, is to go to the Canadians and say, what do you need the Afghans to do? Do that liaison piece, then go back and brief the Afghans and cajole them in giving us enough people to do what needs to be done. Then on top of that, because they'd rather sit around all day in a fucking checkpoint.
Yeah.
And extort tax money from the people that go through the checkpoint, right? That's their ideal way to spend a day rather than fighting. Because unlike us, who went over there all full of piss and vinegar looking for a scrap, Afghans didn't get to go home after 6 months. This was their fucking life. This was their life. And they didn't want to fight every day. And who could blame them? Especially the young guys that are getting paid fuck all. So it was challenging. It had its challenges.
Yeah.
No question about it. It was a constant struggle.
But was it easier working with the Afghan army than it is with other maybe militias or different groups? Like, I'm wondering, where are they recruiting these people from for the army? Is it just people who just want a job, so they're like, yeah, I'll sign up, but they'll abandon?
Yeah.
But if you get into those actual militia groups, and maybe I'm not using the right term for them, so correct me if I'm wrong, but if you get into those groups, those are the people who actually want to fight, that are there because they've got some sort of cause or ideology or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that would be the Taliban. You just described the Taliban. Yeah, the enemy. Yeah, the enemy were true believers. Yeah, they've been raised in madrasas since they were born, literally. Raised in these madrasas where they were taught a perverted version of Islam, so they would hate the infidel and want to conduct jihad.
Yeah.
That they were raised about. That's all it is. Jihad, jihad, jihad. These madrasas were fucking terror training schools. Is what they fucking were. And they were training terrorists to come across the border from Pakistan to fuck with us, so they would maintain instability along the Afghan-Pakistan border, so that Afghanistan didn't become a threat to Pakistan's eastern border or western border, because Pakistan's, of course, busy fucking around with India on the other border. So they want they benefit. The Pakistanis benefit from a destabilized Afghanistan, because then no threat emerges on their western fucking border. So these madrasas are all in fucking Pakistan, because the Pashtun tribal lands transcend the Durand line, which is the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. They sit on both sides, and they traverse freely back and forth. So you get these guys come out of the madrasas in Pakistan where they're protected and safe, and then they come and commit jihad at the jihadi Super Bowl in fucking Afghanistan against us.
Yeah. It's that's a crazy part of the world.
They're the true believers.
Mhm.
The Afghan army were a bunch of kids press ganged into fighting.
Yeah.
So they would run away.
Yeah.
The Taliban very rarely ran away. The Taliban were very smart. They're very cunning. They're like foxes. They're illiterate. They're peasants. They're unskilled. They're really not that well trained. They're peasants, fighters. But you know what? Believed. They believed in their cause, and that made them fucking very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very determined and very cunning. They were smart. Just because they're illiterate didn't make them stupid. They're very smart and very cunning. Sure fooled me the day they fucking blew me up. So anyhow, all that to say, yeah, there were dedicated fighters in Afghanistan. Just the problem was they were on the wrong fucking team. And the guys we had to work with were pretty fucking shitty, to be honest. Didn't really want to be there.
Is there any way to actually compel them to be there though, or could they walk off and just go do whatever they want? Really,
they would disappear all the fucking time to go home and take their pay packet because there was no banking system in southern Afghanistan. There was no way to deposit their pay in a bank and have their families be able to access it. They had to take their cash, risk getting roadblocked by the Taliban on a bus ride home to Kabul or whatever, and executed on the side of the road, just so they could take their pay packet home every few months when they did, if they did, get pay. Because, of course, all the pay packets were skimmed off the top at every level down.
Jeez.
Afghanistan being one of the most corrupt countries in the fucking world at the time.
I'm wondering, do they have like a form of conscription? Like if you abandon, someone's coming to put you in jail or anything? It's just, there's no systems, nothing.
I don't know the ins and outs of Afghan terms of service. What I can tell you is their discipline system was very corporal punishment oriented.
All right.
So if somebody got out of line, they got the shit kicked out of them. If a guy fucked up, which they did, and one day they were lining up to go on patrol. I was standing there, and the guy fucking lit off a round that fucking near shot my fucking foot off. Like it hit the dirt literally 3 inches from my foot. Well, that guy got a fucking beating from his NCOs. And it wasn't my place to stop it. I certainly didn't promote it, but it was what it was. That's how they fucking do business. So you can imagine serving in an organization like that as a young private, 18, 19-year-old, is probably not a very enjoyable situation to be in, getting paid a pittance if you get paid at all, being beaten by your NCOs or your cohorts, and being forced to fight every fucking day. Not my idea of a good time. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Can you walk us through? So now you're in Afghanistan for your second time, and how this IED?
How does the day play out?
How's that play out?
We were doing a village sweeping clearance operation with 2 villages assigned to us for that day. The day went pear-shaped right from the get-go. We, not through no fault of our own, we were late stepping off to get across the Arghandab River, which is a big open killing zone, like a gravel, dry riverbed. We had to get across that to gain lodgement in the first village that we were going to do a clearance operation in. And our reconnaissance platoon was crossing the Arghandab River as the first element, and they got lit up hard by the far bank, by an enemy force in the far bank. Huge firefight, and that was the start of the day. Just went pear-shaped from there. So we finally got across, gained lodgement, swept the first village. It was clean. It was a drug processing facility. All the empty poppy husk was there in big piles, and they processed the poppy. So the opium was long gone, or squirreled away wherever. Found no caches of weapons or explosives or anything like that. We were looking for IED bomb making factories predominantly, but what we found was a drug manufacturing lab. So we left it alone, as was our direction. And we swept that village with the Afghans, searching the compounds. And then we moved on to an abandoned school, which was kind of in the middle of the 2 villages. And we broke for lunch. As we broke for lunch, there were Canadian platoons situated around us, protecting our flanks, our left and our right flank. So the enemy couldn't sneak in and fuck with us while we were doing these village clearance operations, searches. Well, one of the platoons on our right flank that was protecting our right side got into a rip-roaring firefight with an Afghan force to our north, about 400 meters to our north. due north. There was nobody else in the area that could down tools to go assist. And what happened was a sergeant in the platoon that was in contact got shot. It was a through and through. He got shot through the arm and shot in the leg. And the assessment of the medic at the time on the radio was that he was gone into shock and he was probably going to die if they didn't evacuate him immediately. Well, the only other people in the area that could go to the rescue was the company of Afghans that I happened to be tagging along with that day, because I had a company training team attached to that Afghan company. But I would go out with my sergeant major and a signaler and my senior medic and tag along, not only to provide additional Canadian guns, but to provide additional Canadian medical support, since we're all TCCC qualified, to provide higher level communications, and so that I could take the stress off of my guys and let them run the battle, and I would handle the higher level enablers like artillery and aircraft if we got into a scrap. So a bit of a division of labor. And I'd be in a position to assist on the ground. Plus, I had to be on the ground every time my troops were outside the wire, because that's my role as a leader, right? I have to lead by example. I have to see my people perform in order to be able to assess their performance, in order to be able to offer corrective, guidance and training, in order to be able to write them up for honors and awards. I have to share risk, because that's what leaders do. And it's just my proper place with my troops is outside the fucking wire, prosecuting the war. So that's where I was. And we had this firefight happening to our north, about 400 meters away. And sergeant was going to die, and we were the only rescue force, so it was a no-brainer. I gave the orders. We turned left 90 degrees and fucking stormed 400 meters north as fast as we could do it at a run. But we were weighed down with 100 and some odd pounds of fucking equipment, and you're going over hill and dale and literally through 10-foot deep irrigation ditches and on and on and on. It's a fucking shit show. It's like an obstacle course. But we got just short of the firefight. Well, there was a bit of an open area, so we stopped. I wanted to get a grip on the Afghans so we didn't run willy-nilly into the fight. You want to approach a fight in an organized fashion, not as a fucking rolling fucking dirtbag.
Yeah.
So we stopped. We got the Afghans down in a defensive posture, and we had about 5 minutes where I was talking on the radio, looking at my map and whatnot. And I walked around. My headquarters was in the center of the all-around defense, as is our normal standard operating procedure, which of course the enemy know all of our tactics, techniques, and procedures from observing us. So after we'd been there about 5 minutes, I walked around the end of a low wall into the shade of a tree, and I was just about to kneel down to talk to my driver/bodyguard when flash of orange. I felt heat on my backside. I was flying through the air, landed on my back with a oof, because my plates and my ammunition knocked the wind out of me. And I remember landing, and my legs were warm. And I went to sit up, and instead of being able to raise my torso, what was left of my legs came up because there was no real weight there. And my left leg was gone from the knee down, just above the knee. And that leg had been vaporized, instantly vaporized. I was standing on the bomb when they lit it, when they detonated it. So it vaporized my left leg. Most of the bone of my left leg actually ended up as shrapnel in my driver. That's what wounded him, was the bone matter out of my own leg, which was a bitch to get out of him because biological matter doesn't show up on the x-rays very well. Poor guy. So he was peppered with what was left of my leg. I was that femoral artery was going to beat the band, and then the right leg was hanging off below the knee by a few stringy bits, but it was pretty much fucked. And that femoral artery was going fucking good too. And I knew right then and there that I was fucked. I was going to die in a couple minutes if I didn't get a tourniquet going, or tourniquets going. So I yelled out something to the effect of, they got my legs, or I'm hit, or something like that. And I mean, the minute they blew me up, that's how they initiate complex ambush, right? Yeah. Turns out we were in a kill zone. They were on three sides of us. As soon as they blew me up to create dust, noise, confusion, then they hit us from three sides with rocket propelled grenades and machine guns. So I'm lying there. There's fucking bullets and shit whizzing everywhere. RPG rockets fucking exploding. And the fucking troops were brilliant. The troops, Canadian troops, engineers, medics, piled on me. Started getting tourniquets. Got 2 tourniquets on both legs, on each leg. Stopped the flow of blood. Saved my life the first time. My senior medic put a liter of rescue flow into me because my blood pressure was tanking because I'd lost a lot of blood. That tricks the body into thinking that it's got enough blood pressure to carry on. So that bought me another hour or so. So he saved my life the second time. It took about 90 minutes in a running gun battle to evacuate the casualties. There were 4 of us wounded
Wow.
by that bomb. I was the worst off on a stretcher case. The other guys did get out. The sergeant that was wounded got out as a result of the focus shifting to us, firefight and the explosion and everything. Their fight petered out, so they were able to get the fuck out with the sergeant, which was good. So we did achieve our intent. It's just we didn't achieve it the way we wanted to. We had about a 90-minute running gun battle to get us out of there on a crazy carpet stretcher over hill and dale, back through all those irrigation ditches and whatnot. They cut my right leg off because it was just flopping around, getting in the way. I think somebody carried it out, and they burned it later as biological waste. My left leg, as far as I know, is still fertilizing a bush somewhere in Afghanistan, and I'm confined to a wheelchair with as a double above knee amputee. As a result of that, obviously they got me out. I once after about the 90-minute running gun battle, with a couple of feints and attacks by the enemy that we repulsed, a couple probing attacks. We finally broke contact with artillery at the Arghandab River, got the casualties into the river where it was open enough for aircraft to come in and safe enough for aircraft to come in. So the Kazakh birds came in, they're American birds, Blackhawks, with onboard paramedics, which is awesome. So once I was under the care of them, I knew that I was probably going to live. And it was a 30-minute flight to Kandahar. I knew that, so I only had to hang on for another 30 minutes. I had no painkiller, so it was fucking pretty painful. Those fucking tourniquets, they're fucking excruciating, man.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't the legs. I didn't feel the legs. Couldn't feel the legs. Couldn't feel the fact that there were bite-sized chunks missing out of my belly, where my rigger's belt and my armor plate, my chest plate, had caught my little roll and sliced chunks of my belly off. Like literally dullest scissors in the world. Got chunks
Really?
out of my belly. I didn't even feel that. I was missing fist-sized chunks out of my abdomen, and I didn't even feel it. Yeah, just the tourniquets. Tourniquets. That's all I could focus on, and it was fucking excruciating. And of course, it wouldn't stop for 2 fucking hours. So by the time we got to the field surgical hospital at Kandahar, I was about fucking finished with fucking this whole fucking show. And
Were you awake the whole
yeah,
time?
I was lucid and conscious the whole
Never
time.
passed out from that. You'd think you would. Wow.
Nope. I was awake the whole time and in fucking incredible pain. So when we got to the field surgical hospital, I basically said, they tried to play the 20 fucking questions game and how many fingers, and I just said, fuck that shit. Put me out. And so they put me out, and I happily died on the operating table. Doctor or surgeon named Will Patton brought me back with the paddles. I ran into him later in Edmonton. He told me the story. And then I remember, in and out of consciousness for about a week in Kandahar. They had to keep me because my lungs had to regenerate before I could fly in a pressurized aircraft. So once my lungs were declared good enough from the blast damage, they flew me to Germany. Spent a week in the ICU at Landstuhl Medical Center, American Medical Center in Landstuhl, Germany, which was the clearinghouse for casualties out of Iraq and Afghanistan. So best ICU in the world. I died again there of a cardiopulmonary embolism when a blood clot broke loose out of my right leg. But they managed to get a filter in me and saved my life again. Lucky I was in the ICU, right?
Yeah.
So they kept me alive there. And then I went to general ward for a week. And then my lungs were considered good enough that they would fly me home. And I flew home, landed, got here, got back to Edmonton in the middle of the night. It's like they always snuck the wounded home in the middle of the fucking night, like a dirty fucking secret. I'm not kidding. I literally came off the fucking aircraft in the food service vehicle. You know, the ones that go up on the
Oh yeah.
scissors
Yeah.
that up there. Yeah, that's the only thing they had to take me off the fucking aircraft in my gurney was the fucking food truck. It's
Jeez.
fucking farce. Anyhow, I get in an ambulance and off they fucking take me to the U of A. Spent about 2 months in the U of A hospital, underwent over a dozen surgeries, including dressing changes with Nokia with ketamine, usually. Yeah, about a dozen operations, 2 months. And then I spent 2 months in the Glen Rose Rehab Hospital across the road from the University Hospital, and where they taught me wheelchair skills and did some physical rehab and basically let my legs heal up to the point where I was able to be discharged so they could kick me home.
Mm.
That was after 4 months, and then the real challenges started when I got home.
I want to ask too, is at what point does your family find out, when?
He found out that I had been injured almost immediately. Word comes back. It's all done in a certain way that the family finds out before the media is told any names.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that way the family hears it first from the military, with the padre there in order to provide a shoulder to cry on and all the whole thing,
Mm.
right? I mean, the wife knows what's going on the minute she hears the knock on the door and there's a guy standing there in uniform, two guys standing there in uniform. Yeah, I'm either dead or I'm fucking hurt.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. So the wife knew. But I mean, it was fucking very traumatic for her. And my kids were
W-
ages, I think, 9 and 11 or 8 and 11.
What first point did they see you then?
Well, they weren't going to fly my family to Germany at first, but then they weren't sure I was going to live past Germany. So they flew my family over just in case I croaked. So I saw my wife and kids in Germany when I was in the hospital bed, but I was all fucked up on drugs and shit. It wasn't good. And the kids were fucking beside themselves. And my wife was beside herself. And I'm lying there with no fucking legs, drugged up. It was a shit show. Wasn't good. Wasn't cool. But it was what it was. And we made the best of it. And then they flew me home. And like I say, I stayed in hospital. My wife visited me every fucking day, every afternoon. She was a warrant officer in the Army,
Mm.
working full time. They gave her afternoons off to visit me for about fucking 3 weeks, and then they press ganged her back to fucking work.
Jesus.
Mm. The thing that really stands out too is this isn't that long ago. So,
Nope.
You would have thought, with the way things are now, with not necessarily in the military, but like all the talk about mental health and physical health and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, this stuff is all brand new. Like your case is, we're talking 2008, and within the few years after that, not long ago. So the people got to realize this is going on. So
Yeah, they started to wake the fuck up.
mm,
Day late and a dollar short
yeah,
for the rest of
yeah.
us. For those of us that were injured and snuck home like a dirty fucking secret in the middle of the night. What was worse was the fucking government of Canada stabbed us all in the back. And that's the cause of my trauma.
Mm.
Not my legs being blown off. I could give a shit about my fucking legs. My trauma is the moral injury that accrues from institutional betrayal, from letting my wife down all the way through to not having things like electric wheelchairs on the approval list, to the fact that if you're injured before 2006, you get a military pension and a medical pension, tax-free, and the two don't mix. After 2006, your military pension is held against you and clawed back as earnings. So the insurance company that pays the fucking disability insurance gets away with just topping you up $12,000 a year or whatever to your 90% of your salary.
Mm.
They claw back and use your military pension against you. Had I been injured 2 years prior, I'd have my military pension left alone in its entirety and a tax-free medical pension. But because Trudeau fucked us and the conservatives fucked us, wounded guys, they changed the fucking legislation on how we would care for the wounded, reduced all of the fucking benefits by between 40 and 90%,
Wow.
all the financial compensation between 40 and 90%, the exact year we entered heavy combat in Kandahar. They passed that legislation. And you know what they told us, guys busy fighting the fucking war? Don't worry, there's a new charter. It's got to be better than the old charter. Carry on. And I was senior leadership, and I turned around and I told my troops the same fucking thing. Don't worry, boys, because you're told all through your career. Don't worry, boys, if you get hurt or you get killed, we got your back. We'll take care of your family. Don't fucking worry about it. That's the lesson. That's the thing that was told to us from the first fucking day that we went to basic training, all the way through. And we perpetrated the fucking lie as leaders. We told our troops, don't worry. If you get hurt, the system's got your back. That was the worst part. That's what hurt.
When some of your subordinates saw the way that they then treated management, who's passing that message down, was there any backlash from them? Did any of them say, you know what, I'm out?
I can't explain. No, I can't explain why there was no, or I can't explain all the reasons there was a massive exodus from the forces as guys came home from the war. But I can only assume that was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The guys saw that if they got injured, they weren't going to be fucking properly cared for. So they said, fuck you, I'm not going again.
Yeah, well, I can't blame
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dad, insult to injury. Mark, did you ever see any Mounties when you were over there? RCMP officer?
Yeah.
So to this day.
Oh, they're not under the new system. They're under the old Pension Act.
Yeah. So an infantry officer and a Mountie get blown up, they get the same injuries. The Mountie is still getting all the good stuff of the old system and all the good stuff of the new system, but the soldier has to suck it.
Why would they make that different? That's weird.
There's a lot more soldiers.
Because the RCMP were smart enough to not sign on to the new charter.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah, they had the vestiges of what.
They bamboozled Rick Hillier, then the chief of defense staff, into signing on to this insurance scam. It's called SISIP, the Service Income Security Insurance Plan. And it's administered by Manulife. You think they're interested in making my life comfortable? No, they're interested in clawing back 50 cents on the very first dollar I earn if I decide to go back to work as a fucking severely disabled fucking civilian. So where's my incentive to re-enter the workforce and become a contributing member of fucking society again? Where's my fucking incentive? There is none. It's a disincentive.
Does Hillier, does he have a job now with an insurance company or something?
Probably. Fuck if I know.
Wouldn't surprise me. I want to ask a bit about the rehab and different things since.
Yep.
So what is the recovery? What is getting to some standard of normal for you look like over the next few years?
Well, it was very difficult to stabilize my medications so that they were effective in quelling the phantom limb pain, which is an aspect of traumatic amputation that I never really counted on. But it certainly manifested itself soon enough as the healing started. And it would manifest itself as my left foot's on fire, but I don't have a left foot to put out. And the pain feels very real because pain is all in the brain. So when I say my left foot felt like it was on fire, it felt like my left foot was on fucking fire. But there's no foot to put out. There's not even a foot to massage. I can massage my stump above my left knee where, all the traumatized nerve endings are, but it doesn't necessarily help. And when you got traumatized nerve endings and they don't have any proper signal from their input, then they make shit up. But they don't make up warm, fuzzy feelings. They make up fucking foot's on fire feelings. Or your right shin's being fucking hacked with a dull hatchet. That's what it feels like. And I don't have a PRN. There's nothing I can take to ease that pain when I get transient stabbing fucking pain that takes my breath away. It's problematic when I'm on the highway sometimes. There's nothing I can fucking do about it. And it lasts anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. Comes in waves and it just literally takes my breath away. The only thing that works for it, if I happen to be in the right place at the right time, is marijuana. And obviously can't use that on the highway and can't use that just anywhere. So it's only open to me really when I'm at home in the evening.
Yeah.
As immediate pain relief. I'm on methadone. That was a game changer, but it took me 2 years to get there because it took me 2 years to get to see a pain specialist who could prescribe methadone. Methadone's a wonder drug. They give it to heroin junkies because there's no psychotropic effect. It doesn't fuck with your head. It just kills neuropathic nerve pain, which is exactly what phantom limb pain is.
How come that took so long to see someone that could prescribe that, though?
Because there's a 3-year waiting list for anybody to see a pain specialist in Edmonton.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm waiting right now.
Anyhow,
Wow.
so my story goes, I couldn't see a pain specialist. The meds they were giving me, which was OxyContin, hillbilly heroin, wasn't fucking effectively managing the pain. So the only thing that worked to kill the fucking pain was, you guessed it, liquor, right? And the problem with liquor is it's a slippery fucking slope. The next thing you know, you're a fucking raging alcoholic, which I became.
Mm.
Because it was the only thing that would kill the fucking pain. Methadone was still a fucking dream away. And so, yeah, I started drinking to kill the fucking pain, and that became a slippery slope, and I became dependent and became a raging alcoholic, and was one for the better part of a year and a half to 2 years. And my wife knew it, but nothing she could do about it. She even enabled me because she didn't know of any other solution for this guy lying on the bed in the middle of the day, fucking writhing in pain. So she would go get me bottles to help, try to help. But it turned out, anyhow, that I ended up with fatty tissue infiltration of my liver, which was the first indicators of sclerosis. So it looked like alcohol was going to be a death sentence for me. So I packed myself off to rehab, sorted that fucking problem out, and managed to see the pain specialist, got on the methadone, which was a game changer, gave me my life back. And then I discovered medical marijuana, and it certainly helped too. As an analgesic and as an analgesic for the pain, kind of like a super Tylenol, but also helps. I'm finding with THC, mind you, helps with anxiety and other things that come along with post traumatic stress. So it's a bit of a wonder drug, actually. And to their credit, one fucking thing I will give them credit for is Veterans Affairs actually has it in their budget to pay for that. And it's a proper fucking thing, and it should be in everybody's medical insurance packages.
Hmm.
It's a fucking wonder drug.
Have you tried any of these? Like lots of people online now talk about all kinds of things, from taking mushrooms to whatever else is out there.
No,
Like,
no, I haven't tried any. I haven't tried any of the psychotropic drugs, the hallucinogenics
okay.
that are being prescribed. If I was to do it, I would want to do it under the tutelage of somebody who knows what they're doing, because it involves microdosing. So that there's no, again, your head's okay. You're not all spaced out. It's microdosing with the psilocybin that apparently helps. And the microdose is tiny, so it doesn't affect your brain much. It does something positive. I don't know what. Because I haven't done it. But yeah, it's an avenue that I may explore at some point. We'll see. But I'm not really interested in having my brain scrambled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not really interested in psychedelics and stuff like that.
I don't know how it all works, but I know lots of people are talking about that now, and that's law enforcement, military. So,
absolutely,
but it seems very experimental, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and it still is. I think marijuana is pretty safe.
Yeah,
all things considered. I mean, you may get throat cancer or lung cancer from smoking it, but that just goes with the territory. But it's a relatively benign in terms of effects. But yeah, the boy, that betrayal by the government, that was a hard one to get over, and it took a long time. I was angry. I was very, very angry for a long time, like years. Like I would fly into fits of rage. Much better now, to the point where I can talk about it without flying into a fit of rage. But there is no question, there's an entire generation of wounded Canadian soldiers who have been betrayed by Canada in terms of their financial compensation and benefits.
Yeah.
And Canadians should know about it. And hopefully they'll hear your podcast. And
well, a few people will hear this.
To amplify what Mark's saying is Mark is a senior officer with personal attributes that he can advocate for himself, like breaking himself out of the hospital to go and take over his meeting about his own care. Imagine if you're Private Snuffy. Imagine you're a 21-year-old kid.
Yeah, or a 19-year-old kid who's missing his legs, or in the case of a guy I know, missing both legs and an arm.
Yeah, and doesn't have the resources to advocate for himself.
And yeah, does not have any resources, can't speak well, doesn't, is afraid of senior people and all that, is intimidated, conditioned to take no for an answer. And they're not in a position to defend themselves or advocate on their behalf.
That's a good point.
So guys like me end up doing it for them, some of it. I'm now 7 years on the minister's policy advisory group for Veterans Affairs, trying to right things and correct things on a micro scale, because it's fucking glacially slow and terribly risk adverse, of course, and money adverse. But, slow progress is better than no progress. But yeah, I end up getting sucked into advocating for guys, which takes my personal time, but it's got to be done. Somebody's got to fucking do it. If I don't, who's gonna? That can be a bit of an issue. But the real problem is the young guys, the corporals and privates, who are severely injured. And the reason that it's hardest on them is you're basically, if you're declared diminished earnings capacity, which means you're severely disabled, then the problem is your financial compensation and benefits are tied to your wage at the time of your injury. Well, if you're a private or a corporal, you don't earn very much, maybe $50,000 a year. So you're trapped. By definition, you're trapped at earning 90% of $50,000 a year for the rest of your life, indexed, but less than the rate of inflation. So in other words, how are you supposed to marry, raise kids, buy a house, and do all of those fucking things a 19-year-old aspires to on $40,000 a year for the rest of your life? Oh, and by the way, because you have no fucking legs, your chances of earning more than that are fucking zero.
And if you do manage to go out and work,
they'll claw it back.
Yeah, they claw back dollar for dollar.
50 cents on the dollar. So who's going to go work for 50 cents?
Yeah. Yeah, they're almost giving you a ceiling, right? Because it's like, well, as soon as you start, we see you creeping up to this, we start taking stuff back. So it's like,
it's the first dollar you earn, they take 50 cents. Yeah. And every dollar thereafter, they take 50 cents. So you can't earn anything. You can only earn half. Who the fuck's going to go work for half wage? Nobody.
So I wanted to ask, like, with your advocacy work, and I think it'll be a good place where we can kind of wrap up, is, what are the things that you're working on? Is there specific maybe topics, and what organizations, are out there to help people with going through these processes?
Yeah, great questions. Some of the things we're working on in the policy advisory group, for instance, the big one is the elephant in the room, which is the disparity, the 3 tiers of current care for veterans, depending on where and when you were injured. If you're a First World War, Second World War, well, First World War guys are all gone now. Second World War guys are almost all gone now. But if you're a Korea vet, you're still entitled to long-term hospital care. There are hospital beds specifically for these guys in each province. None of that exists for people of my tier. So when I reach that age, is there going to be a fucking bed for me? Probably not. I'll just be like any other flat-faced civilian without legs in terms of vying for a long-term care bed. Because that all disappears because I'm not entitled to the same benefits that the guys who were injured in a real war, apparently, are entitled to.
See, I didn't know that. See, I'm in that first tier because I was injured prior to 2006.
Right. You'll get a hospital bed. You're under the Pension Act.
Yeah.
You're good to go. You're laughing.
Yeah.
I'm fucked.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, it just goes on and on and on. So the big focus of the policy advisory group is trying to fucking right this wrong. This fundamental fucking disconnect where the government of Canada has decided to cheap out on every successive generation of fucking veteran by reducing their benefits legislatively. That's what we're trying to fucking sort out. But it's a long uphill battle because none of the ministers of Veterans Affairs, including Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor, are terribly interested in going to cabinet and saying, I need more money. So we're working on those initiatives. We're working on things like getting a caregiver recognition benefit that makes actual fucking financial sense. Instead of $12,000 a year for quitting a $70,000 a year job, look after somebody like me. stuff like that. These are all initiatives that we've been working on for fucking years, because it's glacial. It's government. It's disillusioning. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's discouraging, but it is what it is, and there's only one way to solve it, and that's to keep fighting.
Are there any other groups out there?
Agencies, yes, agencies. The War Amps is a great advocacy
Amps.
organization.
Okay.
War Amps, for anybody who's an amputee, I would strongly recommend that they get in contact with the War Amps. They're a tremendous advocacy organization. They don't just help little kids with the CHAMPS program. They actually do still help war amps, which I happen to be. Even though I wasn't injured in a war as far as the government of Canada is concerned. Sure felt like a war to me. I don't know about you. But anyhow, so there's the war amps. There's online support organizations, certainly, but there's not a lot out there for the young injured soldier. A lot of them, quite frankly, are just existing in isolation, getting on as best they can with what minuscule fraps they do fucking get in terms of compensation and benefits.
If there is somebody who is injured or gets injured, where should they start? Like, is there once you're past all the initial healing and
Caregiving.
everything,
Yeah.
Where
should they start? They should start by contacting somebody like me who's been through the system that can advise
okay.
them as to how maximizing their opportunities. 780-932-1854. 780-932-1854. That's my personal cell. At least I can offer some initial guidance to somebody who's been injured and needs a hand.
Yeah.
Guys did it for me. The answer to the lack of government, it's not even an answer. Poor substitute for official government support is what individuals do. It was guys who reached out and helped me, guided me through the long and laborious process. And I do the same now for others.
That's what we do. We take care of each other because nobody else seems to fucking care.
Well, you know what? If you guys can make a difference, at least that's something, right? That's more than nothing, and more than some people might have, especially when they're the younger generation, the 19, 20-year-olds go off and something bad happens to them, something catastrophic. Boy, that would, I think you got a whole lifetime ahead of you to deal with that stuff. So we're going to wrap it there, just about at the end of our time. I do want to say thanks, Mark, for being on the show again. Ben, obviously, for co-hosting again. But yeah, thank you, Mark, for coming on, telling your story, and offering some of the advice to help people out. You're doing more than most out there, so just as long as there are people who do appreciate it. So,
I know. I appreciate that. Thanks very much. It's very kind of you to say.
Thank you, guys, for being here today.
Anytime. It was my pleasure.